There are moments the world never sees. Moments when a legend must offend not only his music, but his soul. In 1984, inside an ornate, candlelit European opera house, a master classical music looked Freddie Mercury directly in the eyes and challenged him. Show me your rock, if it's truly music. What Freddie did next left everyone frozen in silence and changed the maestro's heart forever. This is one of those hidden stories, the kind that reminds us why Freddie Mercury became immortal. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss our emotional stories about Freddie Mercury. It was the winter of 1984. Snowflakes drifted across Vienna like white confetti from a forgotten concert. Freddie Mercury walked through the grand backstage corridors of the Vienna State Opera, alone, gloved hands tucked into a tailor coat, breath visible in the cold air. He had been invited to discuss a potential collaboration, something experimental, something daring, something only Freddie would consider. But the moment he stepped into the rehearsal hall, he could feel it. Tension, skepticism. A group of classically trained singers turned to stare. Some whispered. Others raised their eyebrows with thin, cold smirks. Freddie didn't mind, usually, but tonight felt different. At the front of the room stood Maestro Victor Rodeman, a stern conductor, silver hair slicked back, surrounded by sheet music like shields of tradition. He turned slowly, stepping toward Freddie with the precision of a swordsman. "So, you are the rock star," he said, each syllable dipped in judgment. Freddie forced a playful smile. "And you must be the maestro who thinks rock came from the Stone Age." A quiet ripple of laughs among the singers, immediately silenced by Victor's glare. The maestro examined Freddie, as if he were a puzzle missing too many pieces. "You want to blend opera with this noise you call music," Victor said. "I am curious whether you understand music at all." Freddie's jaw tightened, but he masked the sting with charm. "Darling, I breathe music, day and night." Victor's eyebrow rose. "Then prove it." He pointed to the center of the room, like a dueling ground. Freddie swallowed. This wasn't the plan. He had expected curiosity, maybe resistance, but not humiliation. As Freddie walked toward the stand, Victor crossed his arms. "No microphone, no amplifiers, no band," he demanded. "Just Freddie, voice versus orchestra." A test Freddie never asked for, but couldn't walk away from. The hall dimmed. Silence tightened. Musicians lifted their bows and horns, awaiting the downbeat. Freddie felt the old ghost return. The fear of not being taken seriously, of being looked at as less. A performer, not an artist. He closed his eyes. One breath, one note. Everything would ride on it. Victor raised his baton, and the music unleashed. Hat came next. Freddie's voice erupted like a comet cutting through the atmosphere. Pure, powerful, unmistakably him. The orchestra hit a grand chord, and Freddie soared over it with operatic fire. His voice wasn't just rock. It was art, drama, tears, triumph. Some singers exchanged shocked glances. This was no noise. The maestro's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. "Again," he ordered. Freddie didn't break. Victor motioned for more complexity. An unexpected modulation, a leap into the stratosphere of the score. He wanted to see Freddie fail. He pushed harder. Freddie pushed back, his voice ablade, carving through classical arrogance. Sweat formed along his hairline. His throat burned, but he refused to crack. He needed them to feel him. As the piece ended, silence swallowed the room. Then, "That was adequate," Victor said coldly. A knife twisted behind his smile. Freddie's heart dropped. Not because he needed praise, but because he could sense what was coming. "You are powerful," Victor admitted, pacing. "But power without discipline is just chaos. You do not respect the music." Freddie stepped forward, anger heating his words. "I respect the emotion of music, the part that grabs your heart and shakes it awake." Victor snapped. "Emotion without structure is childish." Freddie stared at him, the room shrinking around them. "So you think what I do is childish," he whispered. "I think it lacks depth," the maestro replied. "Rock is shallow." Something inside Freddie cracked. A memory from years ago, being mocked by teachers in school, being dismissed by critics, being told he was too much. The old wound reopened. Freddie squared his shoulders, gaze burning bright. Fine. You want to see depth? I'll show you what rock can do. Cliffhanger. Freddie had a plan, and it would flip the entire opera house upside down. Freddie left the hall to catch his breath, pushing through a side door into a dim backstage corridor. The cold seeped in and met the fire in his chest. From the shadows, a gentle voice whispered, "He doesn't understand you yet." Freddie turned to see Elena Meyer, the orchestra's principal pianist. Warm brown eyes, hair tied back loosely, fingertips still trembling from the rehearsal. "You were brilliant," she said. "But Maestro Rodeman, he believes classical music is perfect because it survived centuries. He fears what challenges tradition." Freddie smirked bitterly. Afraid of a little rock and roll? Afraid of losing control? Elena stepped closer, speaking softly. "Show him your heart, not your volume. He'll hear you differently." Freddie hesitated. Vulnerability. The one thing harder than any high note. What if he's right? Freddie murmured, "What if I'm just noise?" Elena placed a hand over his. "Noise doesn't make people cry. Your music does." The words melted something frozen inside Freddie. He suddenly remembered why he came, not to win approval, but to build a bridge, to prove that passion and discipline could coexist. A smile crept back onto his lips. "Elena, darling, would you like to join me in a little rebellion?" Her laugh echoed like bells. She was in. Word spread fast. The international press caught wind that Freddie Mercury was secretly rehearsing at the Vienna State Opera. Rumors of a collaboration ignited like wildfire. Outside, paparazzi flashed cameras through frosted windows. Headlines appeared. Rock star invades classical temple. Can Freddie Mercury really sing opera? Inside, Victor Rodeman grew increasingly furious. His sanctuary, his undisputed kingdom, was under siege. He confronted Freddie again, his voice sharp. "You are turning this into a circus." Freddie responded with a slow grin. "Oh no, darling. This is only the overture." Victor slammed a hand onto the piano. "I will not let you reduce centuries of art to cheap entertainment." Freddie's eyes darkened. "And I will not let you reduce music to a museum." The tension was electric. Two powerful forces refusing to bow. "Leave," Victor demanded, "before you embarrass yourself." Freddie didn't flinch. "I'm not leaving. I'm performing tomorrow night." The maestro froze. "You dare schedule a concert in my house without my permission?" Freddie leaned in, voice low but venomous with truth. "You challenge me. Now you'll hear my answer." Victor clenched his fist around a baton, white knuckles shaking. "This will be your downfall," he hissed. Freddie turned away. "Or my greatest encore. Cliffhanger." The stage was set for a confrontation the world would never forget. Night came. The opera house was filled. Velvet seats occupied by critics, musicians, doubters, and fans braving the cold just to see Freddie. Victor sat stiffly in the conductor's podium, forced by the director to participate. Rage simmered beneath his impeccable suit. Curtain rising. Freddie stepped into the spotlight wearing a dramatic tailcoat. Part opera prince, part rock monarch. Gasps echoed. He was a contradiction, on purpose. Elena sat ready at the piano. The hall waited. Freddie spoke, not loud, but clear. "For years, I've been told rock music is not real music, that what I feel doesn't belong in places like this. Tonight, I'd like to disagree." The first note struck like a heartbeat. Freddie sang "Love of My Life," but unlike any version the world had heard. Slower, haunting, operatic, raw. Every lyric was a confession. The audience leaned forward, breathless. But halfway through, he shifted. The music exploded into a triumphant rock arrangement. Strings attacked the melody. Horns lifted it skyward, and Freddie soared above them, proving rock and classical weren't enemies. They were soulmates. People stood, cheered, some cried. But Victor Rodeman was stunned. Freddie wasn't trying to destroy classical music. He was trying to free it. Victor walked up the podium steps with slow, deliberate precision. A hush fell like snowfall. Freddie braced for a confrontation. Then Victor raised his baton, not in anger, in respect. The orchestra snapped into perfect unison under his command, elevating the music even higher. Freddie felt his heart leap. The maestro wasn't fighting him anymore. He was supporting him. Together, they shaped a new sound, powerful, sophisticated, uncontainable. The final note struck through the hall like lightning. Silence, then an explosion of applause. Freddie smiled, but Victor held up a hand for quiet. He turned to Freddie, voice steady but emotional. "Tonight, you reminded me why music was created. Not to protect walls, but to break them." The crowd gasped. Freddie's throat tightened. The validation he never admitted he needed finally came. But Victor wasn't finished. "I was wrong," he said loudly. "Rock isn't chaos. It's courage." Cliffhanger. One more surprise waited, and it would leave the entire room speechless. Victor gestured for Freddie to follow him to the grand piano. Elena stepped aside, beaming with pride. The maestro sat and played a delicate classical phrase, one Freddie recognized instantly. "O mio babino caro." Freddie's chest tightened. It was the aria that once whispered to him, "You belong on the grandest stages." Victor nodded, an invitation. Freddie stepped forward and sang in flawless Italian. The audience watched in disbelief. A rock icon performing opera with the heart of a poet and the voice of a comet. By the final phrase, tears shone in Victor's eyes. Freddie bowed his head, overwhelmed. What began as an attack ended as a transformation for both of them. The maestro declared, "Music must evolve, or it dies." Tonight, rock and opera survived together. The audience erupted, cheers echoing into the cold Vienna night. Freddie looked out into the lights, heart pounding. "I've always believed music should make people feel alive." And tonight it did. The applause still vibrated through the marble bones of the opera house as Freddie Mercury stepped away from the spotlight, his pulse hammered with adrenaline, sweat cooling beneath the elegant tailcoat still hugging his shoulders. He could hear his name being shouted from the balconies, even as the heavy curtains swallowed him from view. Backstage, the grand corridors of the Vienna State Opera felt almost unreal, as if the entire building itself had paused to witness what had just happened. Musicians who earlier looked at Freddie with skepticism now eyed him like a revelation. A timid violinist offered a small nod. A cellist murmured, "Thank ye for the music." One of the choir singers, with stars in her eyes, whispered, "You made us feel again." Every gesture chipped away one more stone from the wall of doubt that once surrounded him. Freddie smiled graciously, though his heart was still caught somewhere between disbelief and fragile pride. He only wanted to prove that rock was art, that passion was skill, that his voice belonged here just as much as any aria. And then he saw Victor Roderman. The maestro approached slowly, no longer carrying the stiff stance of a gatekeeper guarding tradition. Instead, his steps were careful, almost reverent. His silver hair was slightly disheveled, baton still clutched in his hand, knuckles loosened at last. Freddie braced himself for either praise or another impossible challenge. But Victor surprised him. Without a single word at first, the maestro withdrew a folded, aged sheet from the inside of his coat. The paper looked worn from years of hiding. Edges frayed, ink slightly faded. He handed it to Freddie with both hands, as though it were something fragile, sacred. Freddie opened it cautiously. Music notation, handwritten with beautiful precision, but heavy with emotion. A title in German, softly smudged by time. Herz ohne Ruhe, heart without rest. Freddie lifted his gaze, confusion softening his features. "I composed this when I was a young man," Victor said quietly. "Before applause mattered more to me than honesty. Before I believed rules were more important than dreams." Freddie traced the notes with his eyes. The melody line soared like a bird that was never allowed to fly. "It's beautiful," Freddie breathed. "No one has ever heard it," Victor confessed. "I never believed it deserved to be heard. I buried it because it frightened me. It came from a place of vulnerability, and I chose walls instead." There was shame in the maestro's voice, and pain. Freddie felt a deep ache inside his own chest. He knew that fear. He had lived with it. The terror of being seen, truly seen, flaws, dreams, the deep truth beneath the show. Slowly, he placed his hand over Victor's. "You weren't afraid of your music," Freddie whispered. "You were afraid of how much you needed it." Victor blinked, startled by the accuracy of the statement. For a moment, the two men, one king of rock, one emperor classical, simply stood in silence, united by the invisible thread of artistic fear. Freddie folded the sheet with care, holding it to his heart. "Let me finish it with you," he said. "Let's give this heart a place to rest." Victor's lips trembled in a stunned, grateful smile, his first genuine smile of the night. Elena, who had been watching from a distance, stepped forward, tears glimmering in her eyes. "You changed more than music tonight, Freddie," she whispered. "You changed a man." Freddie didn't answer right away. He was afraid his voice would break if he tried. Instead, he gently tucked Victor's forgotten melody inside his inner pocket. Then, the weight of what had happened suddenly crashed into him. The pressure of the room, the crowd, the expectations, and the release of finally being understood. He felt dizzy. Elena noticed and placed a steadying hand on his arm. "You should rest," she advised softly. Freddie nodded, but his mind was racing. There was still so much he didn't understand about why tonight mattered so much, why Victor suddenly believed in him, why he himself felt different. He looked up toward the stage one last time, the sacred ground where two worlds had collided and, instead of exploding, had embraced. He had defended rock, yes, but he had also defended fear, the fear every artist carries, and transformed it into something powerful. Still, a quiet doubt crept in, whispering, was this just one miracle in one night, or the start of something bigger? Freddie's eyes narrowed with determination. He wasn't finished here, not even close. As he turned to leave, Victor called to him one more time. "Freddie." The rock legend glanced back. "Tomorrow," Victor said, voice trembling with newfound hope, "we begin again." Freddie's heart pounded. Tomorrow, a promise, a new chapter, a merger of worlds once sworn apart. But deep inside, Freddie felt something unexpected, a strange and sudden fear rising again, a fear that perhaps time was running out faster than anyone knew. The night deepened outside the opera house, frost growing like lace along the tall windows as Vienna's winter swallowed the city in silence. Most musicians had gone home, laughter and footsteps fading into the snowy streets. Yet inside, a soft golden glow still illuminated the grand hall, as if the building refused to sleep after witnessing history. Freddie slipped out from his dressing room, now changed into something more comfortable. Black slacks, a white shirt slightly unbuttoned, and no makeup, a rare sight, his true face visible and unguarded. The stage drew him like a magnet. He stepped past curtains that now felt like royal gates he had won the right to walk through. The enormous auditorium was empty, thousands of seats waiting like ghosts who had only just applauded. His footsteps echoed into the vastness. He stopped center stage. Here, moments ago, he had battled prejudice and fear and triumphed. He looked up toward the highest balcony, imagining the cheering faces that filled it earlier. "So strange," he murmured. "You give the world everything, and still wonder if it's enough." His voice drifted into the silence like a confession. Behind him, a gentle rustle, but he didn't turn. He already knew who had joined him. Victor Rodman stood at the edge of the stage, arms folded behind his back. His expression was unreadable, but softer than the stone mask he wore earlier that evening. "You carry a heavy crown," Victor said quietly. Freddie exhaled with a small laugh. "Darling, heavy is the head that wears the eyeliner." Victor chuckled, genuinely now, a sound of a man rediscovering something lost long ago. For a moment, neither spoke. They simply stood together in the sacred quiet of a theater after the storm of applause. Then Victor stepped closer. "When I was young, I believed music could change the world," the maestro confessed. "Tonight, you restore that belief." Freddie absorbed his words slowly, not rushing, savoring. Compliments like that didn't come often, especially not from the guardians of tradition. "And you," Freddie responded, placing a hand gently on Victor's shoulder, "reminded me that music is so much bigger than any one voice." Victor looked toward the seats that stretched before them. Rock, opera, two mountains, but tonight you built a bridge. Freddie tilted his head. No, my friend, we built it. The maestro swallowed hard, humbled. Then, with surprising vulnerability, Victor said, my entire life, I was terrified of being seen as ordinary. It hit Freddie like a punch to the chest. Oh, love, he whispered, voice thickening. Ordinary is the only thing none of us ever are. A long silence settled, comfortable, profound. Suddenly, Victor extended his baton toward Freddie. Conduct, he said. Freddie blinked. What? Conduct the hall, Victor encouraged. You conducted hearts tonight. Why not the stars, too? Freddie stared at the baton, a symbol of control, power, artistry. Slowly, reverently, he took it. He lifted his arm, and the universe felt attentive. The theater seemed to breathe. Softly, almost tremblingly, Freddie whispered, for every dreamer told their dream isn't good enough. He flicked the baton once, a gesture that commanded the very air. Keep singing. Victor bowed his head, not to a rock star, but to an equal. Lights from above shimmered down, dust dancing like tiny stars. For one fleeting moment, it felt as if the entire cosmos was bowing to Freddie Mercury. Tears filled his eyes. He lowered the baton. If music is a religion, Freddie said quietly, tonight we prayed together. He handed the baton back to Victor, who refused. Keep it, the maestro insisted. A reminder that you are not just a singer. You are a conductor of souls. Freddie's breath caught, a mix of gratitude, disbelief, and something deeper, something bittersweet. He slipped the baton inside his coat pocket, placing it next to Victor's unfinished aria. Two gifts, proof of a night that had changed them both forever. Victor extended his hand. Take a bow with me, he said. Freddie shook his head slightly. It's your world. And now, Victor replied, it's ours. Freddie hesitated, then placed his hand into Victor's. They stepped forward together and bowed to the empty seats. The auditorium may have been silent, but the applause lived on in their hearts. In that bow, barriers vanished. Judgment dissolved. Two disciplines shook hands and smiled. Rock and classical. Emotion and discipline. Past and future. United as they straightened. Freddie looked out into the dark hall and whispered, no audience but a perfect audience. Victor nodded. The ones who truly listen are always still here. Freddie inhaled softly. The weight of the night settled into his bones, a beautiful, aching weight. Then a sudden, fleeting shadow of fear crossed his eyes. A reminder of something he hadn't shared with anyone yet. His voice, his health, his time. None guaranteed. Victor noticed a flicker of pain, but said nothing. Some truths reveal themselves only when the music stops. Freddie tightened his fist around the baton, inside his pocket, and forced a tender smile. Music keeps us alive, he whispered. Victor answered, and because of you it will keep evolving. They turned away from the stage, ready to leave, ready for tomorrow, believing they still had countless nights ahead. But tomorrow is a fragile gift, and destiny had already begun counting down.